So is it possible for Bernie Sanders to win the nomination? Can we go to a brokered convention and can he pull it off some way, somehow? Can Bernie Sanders, can he win victory? We got the superdelegates. Can't Bernie just get the superdelegates on his side? It's possible. I mean, this America, anything's possible. But then there's also I can resonate with the feeling of having an endless hope for something to happen, and it's, the dream crushes right before your very eyes. So I want to talk mostly about the 1960 Democratic Convention with JFK when he captured the Democratic nomination. 1960, this is Los Angeles, California. You got Harry Truman, you got LBJ, you got JFK, RFK, Stuart Symington, Russ Barrett, just a whole host of, assholes here and there, just a whole bunch of different characters that was in the Hubert Humphrey. That asshole's going to come back, fucking Hubert Humphrey. So 1960, JFK basically was going against Hubert Humphrey. That was the main guy with the primaries, but the convention is going to be a whole nother animal. So the way that I know that is possible, just looking at history, what can Bernie and Tulsi, and hell, what could anybody else do at this point in time to get the Democratic nomination? Because it ain't over until it's over. It ain't over until the Democratic Convention nominates a nominee. That's when, the Democratic primary, the Democratic election is over. When the Democratic nominee is nominated at the Democratic Convention and the majority of delegates votes for that nominee, then they get it. That's who gets the Democratic. That's when it's over, right? So there's, in 1960, JFK is going to win most of the 11 of the 14 elections. They didn't have a 50-state strategy. They just had 14 states that had primaries, and 11 of those states, JFK is going to win. So JFK is going to win. He's walking into the 1960 Democratic Convention. And what happens? Well, two big things happen. First, Truman is going to resign his delegate position in a very public press conference. Big crybaby Harry Truman, right? The Mr. dropped the bomb, killed a whole bunch of innocent people, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and then also desegregated the military. So he did, I guess, a few good things. So Truman is going to resign his delegate position. He was the president, had influence at these conventions, but he's kind of like, I'm sick of the people of JFK's rigging the convention. It seems like the convention's already set. It's already, basically JFK owns this thing, and Truman said he believes in an open convention. This is the former president, right? Very high-ranking, esteemed member of the Democratic Party, sitting there saying that the Democratic Convention, not only, he isn't afraid of it being brokered, but he says that it should be an open convention, therefore it must be a brokered convention. Harry Truman. And then the other big thing that happens is LBJ, who didn't campaign at all, and Adlai Stevenson, both of them, neither one of them ran in any of the 14 states. There's only 14 primaries, but LBJ and Adlai Stevenson didn't join in any one of those primaries at all. They announced their campaign 1 week before the convention. LBJ and JFK is going to debate on July 12th, 1960. Just 1 week prior to, the July convention. We have a July convention this year, and we have a primary system, a 50-state plus, 5 territories in D.C., so that's a much better system now. There's also a favorite son bullshit, which I don't like, and then it's not, I like that it was an open convention back then. I also like the overall totality of how the 1960 campaign went down, especially the brilliance of JFK's campaign all throughout the entire thing. All eyes were on, John F. Kennedy. And so he was able to, garner those victories in the primaries, and now everybody's talking about him winning, and he wins 11 of the 14 states. He's the presumptive nominee, right? In current today and age, he would be the presumptive nominee, and everybody would just be expected to drop out and, get behind the, presumptive front runner. Now, when Harry Truman does this, JFK is actually going to give his response a press conference saying that since 1932, because this is 1960, so for about 30 years, since 1932, the Democrat nomination, they had picked the front runner they had picked the front runner on the first ballot at the convention in 32, 36, 40, 44, 48, 52, and 56. So in all those years, for 30 years, the presumptive Democratic nominee was chosen on the first ballot. Now, while you've had a whole bunch of broker conventions, there was the 1924 Democratic Convention. That took 103 ballots. In 1920, you had Harding, William G. Harding, the Republicans. They're going to choose him in 10 ballots. Abraham Lincoln was chosen in 3 ballots. James K. Polk chosen in 9 ballots. And Harding, Lincoln, and Polk are going to go on to become president. So the idea of a broker convention wasn't a scary thing. In fact, in American history, it was a very typical, and it was expected. Harry Truman expected an open convention. And, Abe Lincoln, James Polk, William Harding, or Warren G. Harding, all these candidates who go on to become president went through a broker convention. They were chosen by a broker convention. So, whereas historically it happened over and over again, we have gotten away from it, but in 1960, it's looking like a brokered convention. Now, JFK is going to pull up a huge upset and just win it on the first ballot, getting 53% of the delegates. He got 806, LBJ smoking everybody. LBJ's second place, 27%, getting 409 delegates. And then Stuart Symington gets 86 delegates and 6% of the total delegate vote. Now, they had ran enough people to almost deprive JFK of a majority. If they could have deprived JFK of a majority, then he might not have become president. It might have gone to someone else. But because JFK was able to capture the first ballot with 53%, narrow victory, but he got it. He's now the Democratic nominee. So what look at LBJ and Adlai Stevenson, look at Harry Truman. What can be done? What can Bernie Sanders do in Tulsi? Or Hallie Hawkins, or, Sherrod Brown, or The Rock? Anybody, Nader, he could be the ultimate spoiler. Bernie and Tulsi could resign their campaigns now and then declare their campaign 1 week out from the Democratic Convention. Anybody could declare their campaign out 1 week before the Democratic Convention. Put their name up as a possible contender. So The Rock could become president. Ralph Nader could become president. Just start your campaign just like LBJ did. And if you're going to say, well, they don't have a chance. What the hell? That's so stupid. That's ridiculous. It's America, right? Anything is possible. But, and more importantly, what happened? So LBJ announces his campaign 1 week before the Democratic Convention. He's the biggest number 2 spot. And then there's this story because JFK is going to pick LBJ as the vice president, as his running mate the very next day. Now, perhaps he did it because he was number 2 at the convention. Maybe he was just a big, he was basically placating the guy because it wasn't his best friend. And so it seemed kind of sudden and out of nowhere. RFK is going to try to dissuade LBJ from accepting the nomination. So there was a division between JFK and RFK. RFK is trying to say, hey, LBJ, you need to butt the fuck up out of this, motherfucker. You need to butt the fuck up out of this, you stupid bitch. And then LBJ was like, oh, okay, so JFK's kid brother's going to call me a bitch? He's going to call me a bitch, huh? But the story that was, apparently somebody had overheard the conversation, but JFK was being blackmailed, and that J. Edgar Hoover actually had pictures of JFK's womanizing, and they were going to point out his womanizing in the campaign unless JFK picked LBJ as the vice president. And so, yeah, LBJ's like, you gonna call me a bitch? Well, you a bitch. Look at this. I'm gonna ruin your campaign with these pictures. You better pick me as VP. And then, ultimately he gets chosen by JFK and then by acclamation. So he, chooses him personally, and then the convention, just perfunctory, goes ahead and nominates him. Also, it was accused JFK was having Addison's disease and that he was on cortisone. So candidates' health is an important conversation, but at this point, the whole dementia thing, that's desperation of the Bernie Sanders supporters, which means that, Bernie needs to go harder, and he still needs to pull a rabbit out of his hat, and he still needs a Hail Mary pass, so he needs an absolute miracle this Tuesday. Absolute miracle. Only, I guess, the debate, that's the biggest chance that Bernie Sanders has is the debate. It's Joe Biden's to lose and Bernie Sanders to win. That's why Clyburn and these fucking establishment people say that they need to, drop out. So it is, Addison's disease. I'm not sure. JFK had some health problems. I don't know. He denied being on cortisone and denied having Addison's disease, but he could have had those things or maybe something else. But those are things that came out in the campaign. So anyways, LBJ is going to become the vice president. JFK is going to get assassinated. LBJ is going to become president. And so to assume that having a campaign 1 week out before the convention wouldn't be a good idea, or wouldn't work, or you wouldn't have, strong political ramifications, it had very, drastic political ramifications because it wasn't Hubert Humphrey or anybody that had run in the primaries that's going to become the president. It's going to be the vice president that becomes the president. So LBJ, because he ran 1 week before the Democratic convention, ultimately is going to be the VP, and then ultimately he's going to become the president. Now he's going to get a lot of shit done. He's going to be one of the, strongest liberal presidents we've ever had. Medicare, Medicaid, strengthened Social Security, LBJ, the Great Society, right? A war on poverty, whole bunch of shit LBJ did. What was the biggest thing he did? It wasn't Social Security or Medicare, the Civil Rights Act. So LBJ integrated America, right? So lucky us that his political shenanigans, that LBJ was actually, a pretty good progressive ruler. But this just shows you that, this is politics, right? Motherfucker jumps in 1 week before the Democratic convention, and now he's the president. So if Ralph Nader wants to become the president, Bernie and Tulsi, they could drop out and, reemerge. Probably not a good idea. Probably shouldn't do that. But Hallie Hawkins is Green Party, Ralph Nader, Sherrod Brown, The Rock. If it goes to a broker convention, theoretically, it can, any person can be nominated. Typically, it's a person, an insider, some politician, or somebody that's got delegates that walked in maybe as a delegate, but the delegates have to nominate the person, and then the delegates have to elect the person. So getting 1 week out, this is a possibility. This is what LBJ did to JFK in 1960. So now I want to just go through the facts of the case. First, I want to mention 1932, FDR won 44 states. So people point to McGovern. Look at this, a liberal progressive can't win. McGovern got his ass kicked. Yeah, he did against a popular president and had a strong economy. So there's, some things that was going on in 1972 that 1932 shows that a democratic socialist not only can win or barely win, but win resoundingly. FDR is going to be one of the most popular politicians in American history, but he won 44 states. He smashed Herbert Hoover to pieces right after the Great Depression, but they needed an FDR, and FDR was able to win America because of that. So 1932, you could point to 1972, right? You're going to go 50 years? Well, fuck it, let's just go back, 90 years. But FDR, a democratic socialist, has won America sweepingly, resoundingly, without a doubt. So in terms of electability or whatever that, dumb bullshit is, there's an example in history where it was clear as, day that a democratic socialist could win and win overwhelmingly, resoundingly, without a shimmer of doubt. Okay, so let's get to the details of the 1960 Democratic primary. So let's see, 1960s, the 50s, which is Dwight D. Eisenhower. He's the president now. He's going to, the second term, so he can't run again. It's an open seat. Who's going to come out? Adlai Stevenson had run 2 times before, but he lost, and so he's, getting the loser label kind of put upon him. So people are looking for a new face. JFK comes out of the woodwork. Now, they're going to start these primaries. You're only going to have 14 states. They're going to start out in Wisconsin. Well, they're going to start out actually in New Hampshire. New Hampshire was first, but not Iowa. So we didn't have the dumb, Iowa bullshit. but New Hampshire was still first. But number 2 was Wisconsin, and New Hampshire seemed like it was a shoe-in. JFK is going to win New Hampshire by 85%, so they said, oh, that's not a real election. It's really Wisconsin. That's really going to determine if JFK is a competitor. And then he's going to win Wisconsin 56% to 44% over Hubert Humphrey. So JFK and Hubert Humphrey were the main contenders during the primary season. Hubert Humphrey, unlike LBJ, actually campaigned and stuck his neck out there, put his name on the ballot, and heard what the American people had to say. 1960 is also when Hawaii and Alaska, the first time they got to vote, just to give you a sense of, where this is at in American history. So 60, so that's 60 years ago. So 1960, right? So 1960, New Hampshire picks JFK at 85%. JFK beats Hubert Humphrey in Wisconsin, 56 to 44%. So JFK is looking swell, right? JFK is looking to kick ass and take names, but somehow it got to West Virginia was the big talking point, I guess, of Hubert Humphrey. Well, let's see if he could actually win over, dirt poor white trash, right? He's this elitist, stuck-up Catholic. Well, let's see if the white trash, and then the white trash voted for JFK too. So JFK is going to take 11 of the 14 primaries. JFK is going to win Oregon and Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, D.C., New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Maryland. A guy named Smathers is going to win Florida. Another guy named Hubert is going to win South Dakota. Another guy, there's 15 primaries, my bad. DeSalle is going to win Ohio, and then a guy named Brown is going to win California. So 4 states, for some fucking reason, right, just picked a guy that nobody else seemed to even be considering. I think it goes to the favorite son, the whole favorite son phenomenon, which I'll explain here in a second, but it's fucking bullshit too. So Smathers wins Florida, Hubert wins South Dakota, DeSalle wins Ohio, and Brown wins California. But JFK wins Oregon, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, D.C., New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Maryland. So those are 11 primaries out of 15. He's the winner, right? Those are the only primaries they had. He's walking into the convention with, the majority of the delegates, but they're going to try to deprive him of a majority, try to make it a brokered convention, and then on, the 6th or 3rd or 4th or 103rd ballot, pick one of their establishment guys. And so, yeah. The favorite sons, the whole thing about the favorite sons is that back in the day, 1960, the way that the political machine was ran, because it was mostly the convention. They just started doing a few of these primaries. I don't even know if they did primaries beforehand. But, 15, what the fuck, that's not even, it shows you how much contempt that the Democratic Party has had for the people of America for quite some time. Let's do a couple primaries, but just 15 of the states. We don't want all of America weighing in, just 15 of them. And that probably was liberal and progressive at the time. Before, it was probably just 2 or 3 states, and that was it. Let's just use Kentucky as a battleground. If I win Kentucky, I get America. What do you say? Hubba hubba. No, how about more of how about Colorado? If I take Colorado. So, the favorite sons of these states, like Governor Ross Barrett of Mississippi, he only ran in Mississippi to control the Mississippi delegates at the convention. There was at least 7 states that had these favorite sons. Herschel Lovelace of Iowa was one, and Governor Ross Barnett of Mississippi was another one, and I'm going to assume that this Smathers in Florida and Hubert in South Dakota, DeSalle in Ohio, and Brown in California are kind of the same deal too. There's a bunch of favorite sons. At least 7 states had favorite sons. And so these were, possible candidates at the nomination at the Democratic Convention. They won a few delegates, right? So they got some pull. They have some say-so. And it's not even really about the primaries at all when it comes to what Harry Truman and LBJ and the rest of them was saying. It was only about the convention. It's only about those delegates selected, and it's only about the convention. So JFK, beats Hubert, Wisconsin. JFK again wins against Hubert, against West Virginia, but it wasn't like West Virginia was 3rd or 4th. West Virginia was 7 elections away. So first there's like New Hampshire, Wisconsin, Illinois, and then, the 5 more elections, and then West Virginia comes up, but Hubert Humphrey quits after he loses West Virginia. He ends his presidential campaign after he loses West Virginia. So if you're a loser, that's how you do a campaign if you're a big fat loser who doesn't understand power politics. You start a campaign up, you put your name out there, get everybody hating you, and then you end your campaign, and so now, all you did was just stir up a bunch of hatred for yourself. But LBJ didn't even campaign in the primaries. Fuck the people. Fuck the primaries. I don't care what the American people think. I'm going to come out 1 week prior, and then I'm going to try to take the convention delegates. 1 week prior, LBJ, Adlai Stevenson, what ballsy assholes. And then Harry Truman's trying to, overturn the apple cart. Oh, it's rigged. JFK's already rigged it. JFK's kind of the presumptive nominee, so it's not to say that he could have been rigging it, his people could have been rigging it, but it did seem like he was going to be the #1, first place on the first ballot, which he did eventually become, so people that assumed that was so made an accurate prediction. 53%, right, by the skin of his chinny chin chin, very narrow majority, overwhelming, plurality, and over a simple majority, so he smashes the competition, but barely gets the majority. And so that's what people are talking. So we can deprive Joe Biden of his majority, force a broker convention. Deprive Joe Biden of a majority, now it's a broker convention. Now the superdelegates are going to jump in. Perhaps nobody could decide between Bernie or Joe. Tulsi gets picked, maybe Ralph Nader, maybe The Rock, maybe Hallie Hawkins, the Green Party nominee, maybe Sherrod Brown, a comfortable Democrat who's in power right now. So some sort of compromise candidate can emerge, but right now it's just between, Tulsi, Bernie, and Joe. And Tulsi is in the campaign. Is Tulsi not a woman? Oh, there's no women, it's just old white men, except for Tulsi Gabbard, a young Gen Xer, a female of color. So, Jesus Christ, America, you're so fucking dumb, and you're so brainwashed. It's possible. It's possible. Anything's possible. LBJ eventually becomes, vice president, and he got 27%. LBJ got 27%. He got more than 1/4. 1 out of 4 people was like, LBJ did not win America or win the primaries, but you know what? Fuck Kennedy. To hell with that piece of shit. He thinks he can win and take this Democratic convention by stealing the delegates, by getting elected by the people. Fuck him. We're going to just fuck him up right at the very end. And he got, 409 delegates to vote for him, so thank God 806. Well, I say thank God. I guess LBJ would be better than, or JFK was better than, yeah, JFK was better than LBJ. LBJ is too shrewd. In fact, if LBJ wasn't in the Democratic Party, he might not even know what morals and principles and shit to fight for. So JFK was LBJ's heart and soul. So, yeah, you want to sit there and say people don't have a goddamn chance? LBJ almost had a fucking chance. And so is it a week from the July convention in 2020? It sure as fuck is. It sure as goddamn fuck it is. Yeah, so in the primaries, Hubert Humphrey was JFK's biggest competitor, but when it came to the convention, LBJ was JFK's biggest competitor. Now, let's see. What else do we have here? Third day of the convention is when he's going to win, okay? So it's going to take 3 days of conventioning, then the vote is held. But LBJ, JFK, they're going to debate, right? He's like, hey, I'm LBJ. I didn't win any of the primaries, but I'm going to be the damn nominee. Now let's debate. Now, come on, let's go out and let's debate. Let's see what's going on. Now, I did see a video that had talked about how LBJ was saying, well, look, yeah, I know. Somebody asked him, it doesn't seem fair that you just kind of jump in at the end here. And he's like, well, just because I didn't win on a limited primary system, we just had a few primary states. What was it, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 states? Was it just 15 states? It was a limited primary system. So LBJ is just slimy. And, when they asked him if he would be the vice president, he was like, I'm not going to answer what-if questions. And then he proceeds to answer it and basically says, I'll do whatever the party needs me to do. And so, therefore, I'm not, what? You would think I'm going to be JFK's VP? You think that's why I'm running? You think I'm just running to be his VP? And that's exactly what the fuck happened. That's exactly what ended up happening. And so, what are the lessons? What are the lessons? The overall lessons for me is just how different the elections in 1960 were just absolutely so many different things, right? So many things that are going on. It's better that now today we got a 50 state plus 50 territory and the DC strategy, but we still have the super delegates, and that's totally fucking cheating, and that's not fair. That's not a fucking fair. We need a fair convention. If we're going to have, you know, a fair process, we need a fair convention. So it's better now with the 50 state, you know, plus strategy. The favorite son thing was total bullshit. So it was just about the delegates and just about the convention. So the primaries were just kind of a sideshow. And so that whole favorite son thing was bullshit. That just showed you that within those states that had favorite sons, they had a very strong, you know, local state party machine. It was a strong party machine, and you might say, oh, that's good for, yeah, it's good if you could get the support of the machine, but it means it's authoritarian, and it means that they're probably corrupt as shit and running their state very corruptly. You know, if they're able to, you know, manhandle their whole state like that and then get, you know, manhandled delegates, and then the governor of the state gets to control who the delegates vote for, so you got to convince the governor and not the people. So the whole favorite son thing, I'm glad we got rid of that stupid-ass bullshit. I do like Harry Truman calling for an open convention, because an open and fair convention is the only way it should be. I do think we should have had ranked choice voting. In all these elections, we needed ranked choice voting. The super delegates are absolute just cheating. It's not even close to being a fair thing at the Democratic convention. So I think the Green Party convention or the Libertarians might be the fairest things that we got right now. So, the lessons, let's see. It shows you the extent that the establishment will go to stop a progressive new face. The JFK is relatively progressive, but brand new face, and so, you know, at the very last second, Harry Truman's like, I'm not going to be a delegate no more. It looks like JFK is taking over the Democratic Party. I will not be a delegate to this party anymore. So he basically causes a big, you know, shitstorm, throws a stink bomb saying it should be an open convention, and it might not have been until, you know, Truman had said something, and then LBJ and Adlai Stevenson, you know, they jump in the actual campaign 1 week prior, right? Hubert Humphrey went and campaigned all those months, and then quit before it even got to the very end, and LBJ was like, I don't care if I campaign for any of the primary states or not. I'm the fucking man. I'm the one that should be president. I'm the one that should be the vice president. I'm the one that needs to set JFK up in Dallas and make sure it's motorcade. It has no cover, and he's just sitting there. I'm the one that needs to do these things. So it does show his ambitious nature does make me nervous. I'm glad that he turned out to be a pretty good liberal president overall. But, you know, just because he's a cutthroat fucking tactician, that could go either way. Strategies and tactics could help a Hitler, could help a, you know, Ralph Nader, could help a Bernie Sanders, a Tulsi Gabbard, or it could help a, you know, a Donald or a Joe Biden, or a Hitler or a Stalin, right? So, let's see. The lessons, the extent the establishment will go, they'll go above and beyond. The elections were very different. They tried to deprive JFK of the majority, but they didn't. They weren't able to do that. He was the overwhelming presumptive Democratic nominee, so in today's day and age, JFK would have been picked, and then everybody else, Harry Truman, LBJ, Adlai Stevenson would be, you know, rightfully trounced for being spoilers, for being, you know, obstructionists, just basically stopping the JFK, you know, snowball effect, the rolling machine. It looks like it's going to be JFK, but wait, he didn't give me a position, so... whereas I like the totality of the thing, so it seems like it's very just democracy, right? Of course you're allowed to do that. That's the rules of the game. Truman understands the rules of the game. LBJ, Adlai Stevenson, they understood the rules to the game. So even if the American people were duped in thinking that their elections were ultimately mattered was who was a delegate at the convention and then who wins the majority of those delegates at the convention. If they don't win the first ballot, it goes on to brokered convention. And then it's anybody's game. It's anybody's game at that point. Warren Harding, the strategy for Warren Harding when he was nominated was that he wasn't everybody's first choice. He just wanted to be a nice, comfortable second or third choice for everybody. And so, out of nowhere, a total dark horse candidate, right? James K. Polk, Abraham Lincoln, all these are dark horse candidates. The Clan Bank, 103 ballots, but their candidate loses. And 32, FDR wins. So anyways, Yeah, so it's worse now because we don't have open conventions. I like that they had open conventions, but that's about the only good thing that I like, about 1960s. I like the totality because it just seems like JFK just brilliantly went to the interviews, talked to the media, got on TV, it was anywhere, everywhere, went to every single one of these primaries. JFK just kicked ass, and took names, even though he got the majority of the people. Now he had to win over the delegates. He had to win over the establishment. And so he had to do, wheel and deal, and eventually he emerged victorious. So JFK kicked ass in the primaries, and JFK kicked ass in the convention. So JFK was a badass. So ultimately, if you want to, have for sure,